Welcome to Table Talk. Thank you for joining us today. Today's guest is Mr. Larry Inman to talk to us about his recent honor flight to Washington, D.C. and his service in the Vietnam War. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. Glad to be here.
I was contacted about this and just did not know a whole lot about the honor flight. But first, tell us, I guess, you're a veteran of the Vietnam War. Tell us about your experience, kind of like how old you were when you started and how you served, and anything else you're willing to share.
Well, when I went into service, I was drafted. I tried to join several times and failed the physical. I had some bad knees, but I guess I have one distinction of I was in the largest draft call in the history of the United States in April of '68. Mm-hmm. And they took just about everybody. They were taking really young guys, and I think there was 68,000 people drafted that month.
Wow, that is a lot. Yeah, month. Wow.
And so I was close to 22. Mm-hmm. I had tried to, like I said, tried to join because the job market was kind of bad. But every 6 months I'd go to Nashville and they would give me another physical. And so one day I just went up there, thought it was just a routine thing, and I passed.
Okay.
So in 2 weeks I was at Fort Campbell in a couple of weeks, and so I had a lot of training in Fort Campbell and artillery school in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and every time I would get ready to go to a different school or class, I'd come down on orders to go to Vietnam. We knew we were going. Mm-hmm. We just didn't know when. Mm-hmm. So I took a lot of training classes that would totally try to help prepare me, I guess. But I was stationed with the 9th Infantry Division in Long Binh in Vietnam, and our base camp was it was in Dong Tam, but they called it Long Binh, and so we operated out of there. My MOS was artillery survey, forward observer, and it didn't necessarily mean that you got to work in your field when you were there. Mm-hmm. They would put you wherever they wanted to put you, know. Mm-hmm. For an example, we had a cook in our squad that actually was a cook.
A chef
in real life.
Real life, yes.
And so there was
back in the States, I guess we should say.
There was an inspection of the general's mess or something, but they came through and ate some of his food, and so he got transferred pretty quick down to the officer's mess. But it was being in Vietnam was scary, I guess, because you listen to all the people that had been there before. Mm-hmm. But I'm from the backwoods of Tennessee, and I didn't really know what it was. Mm-hmm. We weren't trained to fight in a jungle situation. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think one of the big reasons is it turned out so wrong at the end. Mm-hmm. We got there, we were put out in the field, and physically we were in good shape, mm-hmm. But we didn't know what to do. I mean, it was kind of the people that were already there, or people that were rotating out would hopefully train and lead you, Mm-hmm. But it was an experience. It was a beautiful country, and sometimes it was just like this, and then nice and pretty and
Right,
warm or
right.
cool, and then sometimes it was just a devastating thing. So,
Yeah.
I had most of my work was in base camp perimeter and as a scout, and so you could you can come up with a lot of tales and stories. I try to, my kids and grandkids have always, especially the boys, have always kind of wanted to know things like that. And so I try to relate the positive things, maybe because there's a lot of fun things that happen,
I'm sure being
yeah.
from a small area and then being drafted
Yeah.
in the largest draft.
Oh,
First
yeah.
of all, you're a country boy that is put into the mix of all of these people from all over the United States.
Well, I will say this. I'm truly a Southern boy, man, and I was taught to be a Southern man. And I also had discipline at home, and I was used to hard work at home. We were farmers. My dad was a farmer. And so I never had a problem with um, taking directions or anything like that. And so I never had any trouble with that. The guys that did have problems were the ones that maybe didn't have as good a family as I had, and
Maybe hadn't been taught
yeah, hadn't been taught
direction and
correctly, and so there was. I can't say that there were any. I wouldn't want to do it again, but
yeah.
I can't say that that it was devastating. Other than the way we were being treated here, and of course we didn't know that until we came home. So
Did you feel that, I guess, at the time when you came home, that maybe people took it for granted that what you all were doing, or is that something you've kind of, I guess, picked up on as you've as you've aged?
um, that's a hard question.
You referenced your sisters and how welcoming they were, and
Well,
that made
yeah.
you feel.
That's the one thing that I weighed a bunch less in weight than so they had to fatten me up, and they never asked questions. They just took me for their brother and loved me, and I had that, and a lot of guys didn't have that. A lot of guys came back really really not in the program. And there's still some of them out there today. There's some here in Warren County. And I've met 2 or 3 lately, or since we've been here in 5 years. But, I can almost look at a guy and tell you if he's, of course, helps to know it was somewhere close to my age, But I can carry a conversation and I know where they were, where they were from. And I get a lot of medical care from the VA, and I see them there, And I thank God every day that I had the family that I had. And if I hadn't have had them, I might have been like some of these other people. And they're still there. The suicide rate for veterans is horrible. It's between 17 and 22 a day that take their life. And I think a lot of it is because of things that happened to them in the past that they couldn't help, that they didn't have help, that the system wasn't there for them. And when I started trying to get some help 10, 12 years ago, it had changed. The American people and the attitudes that they had toward Vietnam veterans changed. We lost a war. We were the first one to lose a war. And then now Afghanistan is a lost war. So America is not 11 and 0 anymore, or 12 and 0, whatever it is. So to be a part of that was devastating enough to know that for political reasons we weren't able to do a job that they sent us there to do. And so when I felt discouraged about the way that other people treated me other than my family, I always tried to come back to, okay, my family is here. That's all that matters. Mm-hmm. That's all that's important is someone to tell you that they love you.
Yeah. And that's who you're there protecting too.
Yeah.
Everyone else benefits from it, but I'm sure while you're away from them, that's who's on your heart that you're away from home protecting.
The attitude that you have, that we all have, we have an attitude, whether it's good or bad, but my dad was terminal with cancer when I went to Vietnam. And as a surviving son, I really didn't have to go if I wanted to go through all the rigmarole of getting a congressman and all that stuff.
Right.
I still had to serve in the Army, but I didn't have to go to a war zone. And but he told me the day it was on a Sunday, it's as clear as it is today. And we went in the bedroom, and he was talking to me, and he said, I said, Daddy, that's a common Southern.
Yes.
Daddy, saying father would just doesn't work for me. But I said, Daddy, I really don't want, excuse me, I really don't want to leave you. And he said, I tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. He said, he had always taught me that there are three things that you honor in your life. One is God and your country and your mother and father. And he said, if you promise me you'll come back, I promise you I'll be here. And when I got back, he was here for 3 more months. And those 3 months were from what I hear from everybody not being here, was the best 3 months
that he
had in a couple of 3 years. So, again, I think it's attitude, and the soldiers and men and women that fight today and that serve today, they have a different program than we had. We had no support back home. And, going to the wall, going to Washington, I had resisted that forever, and probably would still not have gone had it not been for Paul Blackwell with the Honor Flight people.
Well, let's talk about that. You were chosen to participate in the Honor Flight. Tell us what the flight was like.
It was really good. Like I said, I had not. I don't know how today. I don't know how I got on there. I don't know who recommended me or whatever. And I think most of them do come from recommendations. And so I went with Jim and Doug Durham, and so I had knew somebody local here, and I go to church with Jim, and so that started out to make it a little easier to go, but we got up. It was a one-day event, and it was crammed. We got went over to Manchester, administration building, and 4 o'clock in the morning, and a little while we hear these sirens, and everybody's kind of looking, but there were police cars coming from Tullahoma, and 5 police cars with their sirens on, bringing the bus in there for us to get on. And I think about 25 American Legion motorcycle riders. And so it's kind of chilling just for that at 4 o'clock in the morning, But we loaded, met some folks there, different people came in
from the Middle Tennessee area.
And there was one guy from Huntsville, Alabama, and might have been a couple of people from Alabama. And but the Middle Tennessee Honor Flight, as I got to know more about it, Paul Blackwell is a board member of that. I think they're in Tullahoma, and this particular part is truly a charity event. It's donations only, and they don't go out and solicit, as far as I can tell. Well, in fact, they told me that they didn't. And so on our flight, there was about 30 of us, and there was two doctors and three nurse practitioners. So I guess they take a bunch of old guys.
Well,
You know,
they want to take good care of everyone.
Exactly, they want to take
Yes.
good care of this. This one lady the nurse called me before the flight and said, "Are you on medication?" I said, "Sure." And there's one particular one that I carry in my pocket all the time. And she said, "What pocket do you carry it in?" And when I met her, she said, "Oh, your right pocket." So, I mean, she knew where to go get the medicine if I needed it.
It sounds like a very well organized event, and as you said, with all of the, you feel. I would think you would feel honored and respected, and then I'm sure the flight over there was probably interesting, getting to talk and see with
Well,
some
it
others.
was honestly, it was kind of quiet. I think everybody was soaking in or
Yeah.
absorbing,
The experience.
the experience at that point when we first got on the bus. But, the same police cars escorted us on the freeway. I'm sure there's some upset people about that. And with all the riders and, and we went into Murfreesboro, picked up a few people, went to Nashville. And we got to Nashville at, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the morning at the airport, and there were volunteers out there, applauding and signs and all that stuff, and that was kind of a unusual thing to happen, And then we get into the area to get in the waiting area at the gates, and the Nashville CEO and of the airport came out and talked to us, and they had an entertainment at 6:30 in the morning, singing songs of America, and so and it fed us and things, and we get on the plane. I have one personal experience that I get on the plane and I'm sitting, just kind of watching people get on, and I look up and there's my grandson, and
Oh
I
my.
thought, oh my goodness, he had just graduated from MTSU. He's a pilot, or he's been recruited by Delta, but I thought he's going to go with me. He's going to be my guardian.
Yes.
But he was going to a graduation thing up in Rhode Island somewhere. But when we deplaned in Washington, I got to talk to him for a few minutes.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought he's my man. He's going to take me out. So Jack, I got to see Jack, and that was fun.
And I guess if people need caregivers to go with them, there are
well,
some of those
yeah,
too.
I had, believe it or not, I had some of the people had 2 or 3 to take care of, and I just had one. Paul Blackwell was my guy, and he was a walking, talking director of information, because he had been on the flight several times.
Right.
And so I got, instead of kind of getting a group presentation, I got one just constantly, and it was a lot of walking, and took a rollator and a cane, because it's kind of tough.
Yeah.
As fast as you
Right,
get
because
to
you're
it.
doing all of that. Well, let's move forward a little bit to your experience at the wall, seeing the names of all those men. Did you know any of them personally?
Yeah. You and I talked a little earlier. I've not known ever if I wanted to go there or not, and don't take this wrong. I was a little disappointed when I got there, because I think I wanted it to talk to me or something.
Yeah.
And it didn't, and then I realized, okay, this is a wall of death. It's not supposed to make me feel better. So I still haven't touched the wall, but I found a couple of guys that I knew, and a friend of mine here in town's cousin is on that wall, and I got Paul to,
Etch
do the
them,
little
yes,
etching on him,
uh-huh.
and I brought that back to Alan. But the wall was, I don't know how you explain to people personal feelings about that. But it seemed like to me it began to be a place of reverence, and even the kids running around were quiet around that around the wall. And it's really long, and kids were running up and down through there, but they weren't yelling and talking like kids should.
Right, right,
You know.
yes.
So seeing it was finally a relief. Okay, I've seen it. I'm coming in to grips with the fact that I knew people on there, and I feel like I've known them all because being a part of something that created that made that happen. So the wall, I'll have to say, if anybody has a chance, now the wall is not the only one up there, but if you've got a chance to go there, you need to go. And the World War II, the Korea War, all the monuments that are there are just outstanding. I mean, it's just something to see. There was a fellow from Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and but he lived in California now, and he is 95 years old, and he was a World War II Korea veteran, and I heard he was on there, and there was only 3 World War II
Two,
guys,
yes.
and so few of them left, and people that, if you ever see a World War II guy, speak to him. I mean, they deserve it. But I got to talking to him, and he was a very quiet fellow. But later when we were having dinner, they honored him with a quilt this lady made, handmade quilt that she gave to him, and here was why he received such an honor as this quilt was. There was a battle fought in Korea at a reservoir called the Chosin Reservoir, and it was held on one side by American soldiers, American Army, and American Marines on the other side. And the enemy, Chinese, were pretty much slaughtering our people. And it was later, and they were fighting in 31 degree below zero weather.
My word.
So the good news is there was a tremendous amount of the good news is they kept that battle. They kept that reservoir. The bad thing was they lost a lot of people. This man was a survivor of that battle, and they are known in the history of military history, I guess, as the frozen chosen, because it was so cold. His fingers, most of his fingers, he didn't have the ends of them, and I would imagine the toes, would be the same or whatever.
Right.
But I thought I can't imagine what they had to go through, and for America not to honor those kind of people for the sacrifices that they did or they went through is tough. I wish that our children could be more intonated into the military history. And I know I guess, even according to the Bible, there's war and there'll always be war, and so somebody's got to fight them.
Do you feel like that as Americans we're doing a bit of a better job now
Oh my
at
gosh.
honoring those that served?
Yes. And, to have, sometimes I'll have this this cap on, I'll be out or something, or another cap. And up in the last 5 or 6 years, I never had anyone say anything to me that was positive.
Mhm.
Uh, but now they do.
Mhm.
And sometimes their guys get their dinner paid for or lunch paid for somewhere, and Memorial Day's coming up, and I just hope that people out there think about what Memorial Day is,
Mhm.
rather than a day to go on the beach or the river or whatever. Think about why they still have the right to go on the beach
Mhm.
or the river or kayak or whatever, fish or whatever they want to do. So, the airport every Memorial Day has a ceremony out there, and I think people should go out there and support it.
Well, a
And
lot of times too, you can see local people as yourself.
oh yeah,
I tend to watch things on TV and stuff, but you forget there's men and women that served here in our county and our
oh yeah,
region.
there's a lot of females that have served in the Army in distinction, and and from not just this county, this town, and the surrounding areas, and sometimes sometimes you see them and in a different environment, and you don't think about it, what
Hmm.
they have done and what they've gone through. And of course, the memorial thing is for the ones that didn't make it, and the ones that have passed on. But I'm a true American. Lee Greenwood's song is just wonderful, to
Hmm.
me.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I will defend it verbally or physically, however I have to do it, and I still would.
Hmm.
I don't feel like a lot of guys did. At one time, I was ashamed, and, and my last couple of months in the military, when I came back, I wouldn't wear a uniform off base
Hmm.
because I didn't want anybody to know I was in the service. But
Hmm.
they can tell from your haircut anyway. So,
Yeah,
you know,
well, and that's something that unless you lived that, it's hard for us to understand that that happened. For you to come back from serving and giving years of your life
yeah,
and fallen, friends and comrades, but to be almost ashamed of it.
they were. I felt that way to a certain degree. And what makes it better for me is that my children and grandchildren have been raised to respect that, the choices of the military. And another thing that kind of makes me feel pretty good is, as of late, say the last year or so, and I don't remember when it started, but younger people will thank me for serving,
Hmm.
and it is kind of not a shock, but it's kind of a surprise
Hmm.
to see a 25-year-old or 20, maybe even a teen,
Hmm.
that thanks you. And you got to think then that behind them is some parents or
Hmm.
guardian that are teaching them about things.
Yes,
So,
and that's very
yeah,
important too,
it is. It
even
is.
if you're not directly related to someone that served, to teach our
Yeah,
children to show that
that's true.
respect.
That is very
Yes,
true.
yeah.
It
Well,
does.
thank you, Larry.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have so much enjoyed learning about you and your service and the honor flights, and we'll hope, people will consider going on, and you might want to nominate someone for an honor flight or make a donation. What a worthy thing to donate to. And I'll say I'd like to thank our audience for joining us today. We hope you found our show interesting and very informative. Come back again next week for more Table Talk.